History is usually full of noise, right? The big events, the famous names, the loud battles. But what happens when we try to listen for the silence? For the stories that just weren't written down? The lives that were lived entirely between the lines of the official record? Well, today we're going to unlock a piece of that silent past, and we're going to do it with some pretty incredible documents.
I mean, really think about that. When the day-to-day lives, the joys, the heartbreaks of a whole community just vanish from the record, it leaves this huge void. It's a silence that historians are now working like crazy to fill, always looking for new ways to hear those forgotten voices.
So, our story starts at a place in Maryland called Catoctin Furnace. For literally decades, its history was all about its industrial output. How many tons of iron it produced. It was a story about industry, not about people.
And that's the key, isn't it? The official records, they tell us all about the furnace owners and the property deeds, but they're almost completely silent about the actual workers, especially the enslaved and free African American community who did the hard labor. I mean, what were their names? What were their families like? What did they celebrate? What did they mourn? Just when it seemed like those personal stories might be lost to time for good, a clue surfaced. A nearly 250-year-old key that, it turns out, could unlock this entire silent world. And that key? It's these things called the Moravian Diaries. Starting way, way back in 1750, ministers from the nearby town of Graceham kept these unbelievably detailed records. And these weren't some dry official government ledgers. No, these were personal journals and letters, just filled with the real texture of everyday life. And that's what makes them such a game changer. Historians realized these diaries could be a direct window into the world of that furnace community. It's a chance to write history from the bottom up, to capture all the human details that official history just so often misses. So you've got this 250-year-old diary, probably written in an old German script. How on earth do you turn that into a searchable piece of history? Well, you launch a recovery project. That's how. The Catoctin Furnace Historical Society kicked off something called the Recovering Identity Project, and their mission sounds simple, but it is massive. Hire a translator to go through these diaries page by page and find every single mention related to the furnace and its people. And just look at what they're hunting for. This is not just about finding a few names. They're looking for mentions of the African American population, descriptions of big weather events, records of sickness and death, notes on celebrations like weddings and baptisms. They want any detail, no matter how small it seems, that can help them rebuild this lost world. But you see, the ultimate goal here, it isn't just to collect data points. It's something way more profound. It's really about restoring humanity to the historical record. This quote from the Historical Society, it just says it all. Their mission is to illuminate the lives of these people. That word, illuminate, wow, it's just perfect. It's about shining a light on something that's been left in the dark for way, way too long. This chart really drives the point home. On one side, you have the official records, cold, impersonal data like iron tonnage and property deeds. And on the other, what they might find in the diaries. A child's baptism, a harsh winter, a community wedding. See the difference? That's the difference between a statistic and the story. So really, this whole project is about transformation. It's about taking people who, for centuries, have just been numbers on a page and turning them back into individuals, people with stories and families and lives that absolutely mattered. And what's happening at Catoctin Furnace is such a great example of a bigger idea, that our understanding of the past is never really finished. It's this active, ongoing process of discovery, of finding new ways to tell more complete, more honest stories. So what does this path of historical recovery actually look like? Well, it often follows these three key steps. First, you've got to find the primary sources. In this case, the Moravian Diaries. Then comes the really hard work, translating and analyzing them. And finally, you get to the most important step, sharing that story with the world, so it's never forgotten again. And that really gets to the heart of everything we've been talking about. History isn't some static book just sitting on a shelf. It's an active search. It's about recovering voices, illuminating lives, and piecing together a more complete picture of who we all were. And that leaves us with one final thought. Projects like this are happening all over, in communities that probably look a lot like yours. It just makes you wonder, what silent histories, what forgotten diaries or overlooked records are just waiting to be found right where you live?